I think you need to be very careful with, like, if you're doing well right now, okay, and everything's okay, and you have expendable finances to grow your business, you need to be very strategic about where you apply those things. Go on defense, but I think it's also very important to be prepared. Be very focused, be very strategic, and make smart decisions, understanding that things are very volatile at the moment.
What up, it's Mr. X to the Z Exhibit.
What's up, guys? It's Andy Frisella.
This is your boy, Monk.
This is Ryan Serhant.
This is Shingy.
Hi, it's Patrick Benjamin.
This is Sonia Servitani.
This is Director X.
Hey, everybody, I'm Forbes Riley.
Yo, this is Goldie.
This is Amberly Lago.
This is Chris Voss.
Michael Francis here.
Yo, this is Charlie Tuna.
Hey, what's up? It's Billy G.
And you're listening to the Run
GpG
podcast.
Well, I'm going to go hang out and listen to David's next podcast from the Run GpG.
You might hear something you like. Peace.
I'm excited to welcome back to the show one of my favorite guests. Andy Frisella is an entrepreneur, best-selling author, highly sought-after consultant, and public speaker. He's also an industry-leading expert in customer loyalty, creating a fanatical culture, building brick-and-mortar, as well as online direct-to-consumer retail businesses. Andy has been featured in Inc., Entrepreneur, and Forbes Magazine. And on his popular podcast, Real AF with Andy Frisella, he and his guests discuss, debate, and laugh their way through trending topics and hot-button issues. Andy, it's an honor. Welcome back to the Run GpG podcast.
Yeah, appreciate you having me back, brother. It's great to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Now, I was really looking forward to this episode for a minute because we need you to make sense of all the weirdness. I feel like the world is in chaos and we need to get Andy on the show whenever that happens. When we last had you on the show, it's really interesting. When we last had you on the show, the pandemic had begun and we were actually just starting the worldwide lockdowns. And there was a lot going on at that time, a lot of nervous people, fear and uncertainty. And you know what I did? I actually went back and I listened to portions of that interview, and it was an incredible time capsule of an interview. You know, we covered some heavy topics, tackled some controversial subjects, but in true Andy Frisella fashion, right? You didn't pull any punches. You were very outspoken on your thoughts about what was going on. I know your opinions haven't changed much, but now it looks like we've come full circle. So now we're post-pandemic. And I wasn't going to jump into the heavy stuff right away, but we have limited time. So why not? Again, I just want to say we're not a political podcast. We don't have political.
David, I think it's important for people to understand that, you know, when you're talking about winning and getting better in personal development, all the things that we teach, all the things that we talk about, all the things we talk about growing a business require strong freedom as a foundation. And so a lot of entrepreneurs, they like to dodge the idea of political, undertones or overtones. But the reality is it's the bread to the sandwich. Like, right, if we don't have it, we cannot create it. And so that's what people have to come to understand. I don't like talking about politics either, dude. I would rather talk about the cars I've got or how to make money or how to be a baller and all these things. But without freedom, we don't have it. So
I get that. I like to simmer it down to the actual discussion, because I think when you take sides politically, that's why I say that, not because we don't have an opinion. Yeah, we all do. But when we take that off, whether you're red or blue, we take that off the table and we just have a discussion. That's why I have that little disclaimer there, right? So we can just talk about the issues. So again, broad stroke thoughts on where we are as a society coming out of the last couple of years. Are we better or worse as a civilization?
Well, I think you could ask a million people. They're going to tell you a million different things. I would say my overview, broad stroke opinion of where we are is that we are on the cusp of a lot of people coming together and understanding that the people, the good people, the non-elite people, power people of this world are being played and they are being taken advantage of. Their life is being intentionally made more difficult. And I think both sides of the political spectrum have a hard time arguing that. And so where I think we are is we are very close to a coming together of a large majority of people understanding that we need unity, and we have to understand that it isn't left versus right or this country versus that country. This is a human issue across all countries. And we need to come together with the idea that, we have a small group of people who are very powerful, who control a lot of the wealth, who control a lot of the media and these things. And because of that, we are manipulated and we are divided and we are intentionally pitted against each other so they can continue to pillage and make life hard on us. And so I see more and more people waking up. I see more and more people understanding the implications of what's happening. And it starts with the entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs have to understand that the culture war that we're fighting, because that's really what it is, it's a culture war. A lot of people like to think like, oh yeah, it's time to go fight people. That's really not the solution. The solution is a cultural revolution of higher standards and higher performance. And that is put down through the small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. And it's taken from, those leaders to their people, and those people take it home, at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And so how we really, as entrepreneurs, correct what's going on is we correct the culture inside our own businesses, inside of our own life, and allow that to flow down through to the communities. But I mean, I see that happening more and more every day. I've got my thumb on this issue pretty pointed, as pointed as I think maybe anybody else out there. And, some of the ways I could tell you I've come to this conclusion is, there's a lot of people, because for the last 3 years, I've been very outspoken and very aggressively trying to get people to understand what's happening. And a lot of people didn't respond to it. A lot of people hated me for it. A lot of people, they did the thing where they would say the thing like, oh, I love Andy's business advice and he understands what he's talking about, but his politics. And this is not about politics. Okay. Mm-hmm. And those people are starting to come back to me now, literally every single day. And I there's not a day that goes by at this point currently where I'm not getting some sort of apology from someone. And there's a lot of people who will never apologize, but the fact that I'm getting it on a regular basis, in my opinion, tells me that a lot of people are starting to come to the realization that, that they were tricked. So,
well, it's interesting you brought that up. New York Supreme Court says, okay, now you have to hire everybody back and give them back pay. Like, wow, like that's vindication. Talk about an apology, Yeah, well, I actually think I think they should get double back pay or triple back pay, because no one's accounting for the punitive issues. Okay. People like me, okay, people who were outspoken, we got abused, we got terrorized, we got harassed. I had somebody break in my house. Okay. We had crazy shit happening to us, and we were called grandma killers and baby killers. And, we were told that we couldn't have our jobs, and we were fired from jobs, and we were told that we were killing people, and it was okay to segregate us. And in some cases, even here in the United States, they were actually considering putting people in isolation camps for COVID. And we were this close to something really, really bad happening. And people are starting to understand how close we were. And so in my opinion, while I can appreciate that people realize they're wrong, I think also that the people in the military, the people at New York City, the people anywhere, and bro, also, we're not considering the people who didn't want to take it, who took it because they felt like they had to, right? And now we have a situation where, there's all kinds of young, healthy people falling over dead all over the place that nobody wants to talk about. And these people have to live with that fear for the rest of their lives. They're victims of this. There's a lot more victims of this than just the people who were fired from their jobs. Those are the strong people. Those are the people who led the way for them not getting exactly what they wanted. But what about the people that were forced to take something they didn't really want to take? Mm-hmm. What about those people? And so there's a lot going on here. And I think that's a great start. I think it's a great start. I think the biggest thing that needs to happen is that people who were fighting for, against what was going on need to make room for the people who were tricked and who were fooled, because there's a lot of hate going on right now. There's a lot of people who stood up for their own rights and suffered immensely for it, who hate the other people who were bullying them, calling them names. And I think it's really a good learning point for humanity, like how groupthink and, hysteria and fear can create a very dangerous situation. But at the end of the day, we're all here now. We're at this point now. And for this to actually be fixed the proper way, the people who were abused, the people who were harassed, the people who did have bad things happen to them need to make room for the people who were victimized by the media campaign, by the overwhelming abuse that was given out by people who thought they were in the right.
And so I see this as a learning lesson for humanity, especially here in America.
It's interesting because when I asked, what are your broad stroke thoughts? It was very positive. We're on the verge of coming together.
I think so.
It's a positive comment, right? And I don't want to dwell on the negative. I really don't, but there's so much going on. We've got a war in Europe. We've got, inflation. It's crazy. I could list, 25 things that are just mind blowing that are going on right now. If you had to pick one thing that worries you or keeps you awake at night, what would that be?
We have an energy crisis that is very serious. This is what worries me. And I'm not saying this is going to happen, but this is like you asked what keeps me up. This is what keeps me up. If we have the energy crisis that they are creating in Europe, okay, and it happens here, diesel fuel and gas fuel is going to go to $15 to $20 at a minimum. All right. Now, everybody says, okay, well, I'll just stay home, but that's not a problem. The problem is if that happens, tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of medium and small sized businesses will close instantly because it will drive the cost of goods sold too high to make a profit. Okay. And when you couple that with inflation, it creates an unaffordable, inoperable business strategy for entrepreneurs like you and I. Okay. And if that happens, if hundreds of thousands of business pause operations or go, let's say, out of business, tens of millions of people are out of work. Okay. Now, if tens of millions of people are out of work and we're having energy problems and we start having blackouts, that leads to mass chaos and there will be a run on the banks. There'll be a run on the grocery stores. We will have gang activity. And when I say gang activity, it will be from the good guys and the bad guys. There will be good people that will be running the streets, and bad people that will be running the streets, and there will be civil conflict. Here's what people are failing to understand. And by the way, Biden has drained our strategic oil reserves to almost nothing. Okay. So we are in a very, very, very slippery scenario right now. And if that happens and we have civil conflict and we have blackouts and we have food shortages that could happen real quick because of the price of energy, we could potentially face a foreign country literally invading us. And because when would you invade your enemy? You would invade your enemy when they are at their most chaotic and most disrupted state. And there's never been a state that I'm describing in this country on this soil ever before. And so that's what keeps me up at night. What keeps me up at night is us not getting control of the government immediately. And these people continuing to destroy our country, creating a situation where we have mass chaos, and then us actually losing the country to someone else. And people laugh and they say, "Oh, you're an alarmist." But dude, go back and listen to anything I said for the last 3 years, and you're gonna find one thing I said wrong. I know what it is. So I think the chances of that all happening are probably less than 50% right now, because it looks like we are going to get control back, maybe. And there's a lot of people waking up. There's a lot of people who are minority communities that are realizing that what they've believed about the people representing them isn't true. That's a huge deal. And I feel like people are coming together in a way. I think we're going to go one of two ways, right? Like we're either going to go to a very strong, united country from the people up, or we are going to go to chaos, and it's going to be real bad. And if these Democrats, who are these Marxist type thinkers, who have Marxist ideas, who have these idealistic beliefs of everything can be this certain way that totally circumvent natural order of things, right? Strong survive, skilled win, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which you cannot circumvent, there will be chaos. And so what we have is we have a bunch of people who think they have superior intellect, and they have very bad practical ideas. And I think a lot of them are bought and paid for, and I think they're doing it intentionally. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Again, you're saying things out loud that people only think. So it's refreshing to hear. You touched on it, and we're talking about it, but the last few years have been difficult for a lot of people and businesses. Now, I've heard you say this: you have to be able to take your hardships and turn them into foundations that you can build upon. So can you touch on that from either a personal or professional level? Like, why does adversity make you better?
Well, look, I've been at this for almost 24 years, being in this actual company. This one here was spawned off of another one that I started 24 years ago. I still own. I've been through 9/11. I've been through the 2008 crisis. I've been through 2020, and whatever's about to happen, we're going to go through as well. And here's what I can tell you, that there's one of two ways to approach these chaotic situations. Okay. You can go into your turtle shell and you can wait for the weather to get better, right? Or you can just continue to move regardless of the circumstances and move forward. And in my experience over that 24 years of being in business, every single company that I've competed against that has retracted their efforts to improve during the times of chaos, every single one, with zero exceptions, went out of business. Okay. And the companies that survived, and I'm talking about even competitive companies, those companies swallowed up the market share of the people who went in and waited. And so in this scenario that we don't really know what's going to happen, I believe it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I hope I'm wrong. I really do. Preparing yourself for battle in terms of entrepreneurship and developing a high level skill set is always a good idea. Since 2012, which would be basically 10 years straight, we've lived, and people don't realize this, if you haven't been in business for the last 10 years and you've only been in business 10 years or less, you don't understand this. So your opinion is invalid. For the last 10 years, it's been the easiest time in the history of Earth to make money. It's been super easy. Here's why. Because before that time, social media wasn't a real thing. Targeted ads weren't a real thing. The ability to connect with people all over the earth weren't that real. Like we didn't have the technology. When I first started in business, there was no social media. There was no targeted ads. There was no e-com. I had to spend 10 years going door to door, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a completely different level pre-technology that it took to win. And by the way, I'm very thankful I went through that, because I understand how hard it really can be. It's important for entrepreneurs to make the decision that they are going to continue to get better. They are going to continue to develop their skill set. They're going to continue to take those steps forward. I use the analogy of the turtle. Look, bro, turtle doesn't move fast, but he keeps moving. And that's why, the tortoise and the hare, right? So my words of advice for people would be to get real gritty, get yourself in a position where you're going to show up every day and fight no matter what. Do the same with your team, because here's also what's not being talked about that's very important for people to understand, is that this plethora of amazing opportunities could potentially dry up. And if people start losing their jobs and start getting laid off, that means there's going to be a bigger pool of talent than there are of careers available. So a lot of people inside companies who have been kind of coasting are going to get their asses kicked by people who maybe lost their job over here and can get rehired. And companies are going to be looking to improve their actual skill set by hiring skilled people from companies that necessarily didn't make it. So it's very important for people, if you're an entrepreneur, right, which you all should be, all of you should be. If you don't own your own business and you're inside a business and you're working, you're an entrepreneur, okay? You guys are going to have to get really skilled, and because there's going to be more competition at that level. And that's something that nobody's talking about, that I can tell you happens every time there's a big retraction or disruption in our economy.
Man, so well said. I'm glad you brought that up. We just had Patrick Bet-David on the show, and we were talking about
very smart dude.
Yeah, very smart. And we were talking about entrepreneurship specifically. Steve Jobs was an entrepreneur. People don't realize that. Mm-hmm. Like he was an actual entrepreneur from within his own, because they rehired him.
Mm-hmm. If everybody looked at themselves as owning themselves as an entrepreneur, I'm going to create the best product. I'm going to create the most value coming from me. Dude, there's unlimited potential to rise within the ranks for people. And a lot of people, let's be real, dude, an entrepreneur has to deal with a whole lot of that an entrepreneur never has to even think about. And they're like, real talk, dude, I'm kind of envious of some of the guys that work here that are the valuable entrepreneurs, because as hard as it is for them, they get to go home at night and not feel like they're going to lose their every single day. It's a different level of the capacity to carry weight.
Man, yeah, it's funny when entrepreneurs speak to entrepreneurs. It's like, it just resonates, right? I know exactly what you're saying. If you're okay, I'd like to just touch on the subject of mental health for a minute, because I think it's really important. A lot of people have been talking about mental health lately with good reason. The last few years have been really tough, man. And people struggle with fear and anxiety. More and more are open about their struggles, especially entrepreneurs, right? And men, right? And I think that's a really good thing. And you've been somewhat open about your struggles like the last few years. I think you said you were coming off medication, if I remember that correctly. If you're comfortable talking about it, I think it's important that we do, because not enough people talk about this. So why is it important that we do talk about mental health without stigmatizing it? And what words of encouragement do you have for someone listening who is suffering in silence?
Well, look, I want to say this before, and I am 100% okay talking about that. I have nothing to hide with my life, dude. Like, I'm not a perfect dude. I've had all kinds happen to me. I've done all kinds, and I've learned every single time. So like, I prefer to share my experience because I know it helps people. There's a line between being vulnerable and talking about your mental health and actually wanting to fix it, and then making poor mental health your identity and making yourself a victim on the internet so you get attention. And so we have a victim culture going on in society right now. And it's very dangerous for people, because when you start to make your identity, your victimhood, your hard story, your sad story, and that's what you do to get attention, you can never escape that identity. And that becomes your actual life. And you know the difference. Like, if you're making a sad story because you're wanting engagement, you have to be very careful that you're not just creating this identity in your mind that will become real in real life. Now, on the flip side, like I said, with the propaganda, okay, humans are not meant to have the amount of bad news and anxiety-inducing information pumped into their face 24 hours a day. This has been the first time in history that we've ever had to deal with this thing. In terms of mental health, for someone who's struggling with mental health, especially entrepreneurs, okay? Because entrepreneurs, like I said a minute ago, carry an exponential amount of risk and weight on their shoulders every single day. It never goes away, because at the end of the day, it's our asses, okay? You know, in 2012, I had a real nervous breakdown where I ended up in the hospital. I was just about to get married. I had bought my farm that you guys see when you follow me on social media, that I really, at the time, struggled to afford. And I bought it because I knew that if we went out of business or I didn't make it, that I would be happy living there. And it was kind of like my backup plan. And so we were getting married on the farm. There was, lots of projects going on. I was doing okay in business, but I was having a lot of issues as well. We were in that very difficult time of growth, hyper growth at that time. And so we were making a lot of money. Things were coming in, but also a lot was going out. I was very frustrated about that. A lot of other things too. I was also at that point, I didn't understand any of the principles I talk about in 75 Hard or Live Hard. I couldn't catch momentum. I couldn't create momentum. And I was basically out of control. And I also drank a lot. I drank a lot of hard alcohol. And all of those things combined ended up putting me in the hospital. Okay. And they ended up putting me on Lexapro, which was a SSRI antidepressant. In the beginning, it did help, dude. When you have that kind of a breakdown, dude, like my body didn't work. I couldn't walk. I was having debilitating headaches where my eyes would be like this, like I couldn't see out of one eye because the vision was blurry. Like, these are true physical symptoms. We actually thought I had to get a brain scan, and they found a cyst on my pineal gland that they thought was a tumor. And for 2 weeks, I thought I had an inoperable tumor. Okay. So I thought I was done, which was actually turning back was one of the best things that happened to me in my life, because it scared me. But that's a story for another day. But anyhow, I got on these drugs and I stayed on them, and I just took them, and I didn't really think about it. And I still had issues over the last 10 years. It's not like it fixed everything, and I wasn't some happy person, but I wasn't like a raging lunatic either, which is funny because a lot of people, they see me talk and they're like, this guy, what's wrong with this dude? He's crazy. You should have seen me before. All right. So
if you thought I was crazy before.
Yeah, dude, bro. Yeah. People have no idea, dude. Yeah. The real world's not ready for my full gas, but anyhow, over the last 3 years, dude, I watched what Big Pharma did. Okay. And I watched what they were doing to people. I started to really, truly, like, I'm a big believer in quantum physics and metaphysics in terms of like being able to manifest things from our brains, because my life is such a great example of that. And I could sit with you and talk about this for hours, dude. But I mean, I could give you story after story after story of things that I created in my mind that actually happened, like real, and not because I went out and worked so hard, but because I just thought about them and they came to me. And, so I was on these antidepressants for 10 years. And over the last 3 years through the pandemic, I'm watching what's happening with this propaganda for the vaccine. And I'm watching these like intentionally not give a shit about people. And I'm starting to like connect these dots in my head. Like, okay, why are we watching depression commercials on TV every third commercial? It's all about control. Everything's about control. And, you know, they want you fat, they want you lazy, they want you broke. This is why they villainize success. This is why they have 400-pound people on fitness commercials now. This is why they propagate us with unhealthy alcohol and all kinds of food. And if you don't do it, you're some kind of weirdo. And, you know, that's all about control, bro, because when we sit at home and we are overweight, we are undereducated, we are not putting the right things in our brain, we are not taking care of our body, what that makes us is a mega consumer. Okay. We're consuming more data. We're consuming more food, and it allows them to control us easier. And so as I'm starting to connect all together in my own observation, the antidepressant thing started really bothering me. Like it was like I started thinking like this, these got me, and I got pissed about it. And so, you know, it's no secret to anybody that knows who I am. You know, I live on the Live Hard program every year to develop my own mental fortitude and my mental toughness and my confidence and grit and all these things. And I thought about it. And this was back in July, just a few months ago. And so I called my doctor. I use a non-traditional medicine doctor now, functional health guy. And I said, hey, dude, I want to get off of this. And so he kind of gave me the protocol to tear down, right? And then go off of it. And I did that. And so my last dose, I think was like about 90 days ago. And for the first 45 days, the anxiety, this is very important for you to listen to if you're thinking about coming off your medicine. I was way more depressed than I ever had been, even before I ever started taking it. I had physical symptoms like vertigo, and I felt like, bro, like every single day it was a literal fight. If I could go an hour without having a suicidal thought, it was a victory. That's how bad it got. And so for anybody who's thinking about like moving off of this, you really need to do it with guidance, and you need to make investments in your own fortitude and mental discipline, in my opinion, before it, because one of the things that really helped me get through it was the fact that I've been living on this Live Hard program and had been developed a very hardened mindset. And so here we are, you know, 90 days later, I feel amazing, bro. I feel great. I feel much more balanced. I feel good. I'm glad I did it. I feel like it's a huge victory. I'm very proud of the fact that I removed that from my system. And these don't have a hold of me anymore. And so I feel good about that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I really appreciate you breaking that down, because it needs to be heard from someone like you. It does, because a lot of people deal with this stuff. I talk to, you know, captains of industry and, you know, successful entrepreneurs, and they deal with this stuff, man. And sometimes the only people you have to talk to about it is other, you know, business leaders. So it's nice to have. Bro,
there's no shame in this. Like, look,
no, not at all. And not at all. That's why I think it's fantastic that you're open about it. And I wanted to touch on it on the show or on this episode, because I think it's important. You know, people look to you for leadership and for inspiration, and to be so open about it, I think it's such a good thing you're doing by talking about it. And I can't thank you enough for actually breaking that down, because some people just don't want to talk about it, or they shy away from it, or no, I'm tough enough to deal with it. I think
very difficult.
Yeah, it's very difficult. So I appreciate that. And you actually hit on a few of the points I had, which was what helped you get through it. You know, what was the catalyst? So you answered that. You know, speaking of mental health, you know, everybody's got an opinion on Kanye West. I don't know if you talked about this on your podcast yet. They're canceling Kanye, or they're trying to. I don't know if he's cancelable.
No, it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Are you a new real estate agent or thinking about getting a real estate license? If so, you're going to want to ask about the Greater Property Group's Agent Scholarship Program. Why pay for the cost of the course yourself when the Greater Property Group will subsidize the cost for you? Make sure you reach out and get all the details on the Greater Property Group's Agent Scholarship Program.
Here's what I will say about Kanye's remark. I understand exactly what he's trying to say. I watched his interview with Lex Friedman. I thought it was really good. Where Kanye's f***ing up, he is generalizing an entire race of people and saying they're all colluding to control the world and they're doing all this evil shit. And instead of identifying them directly, he is saying the Jews are doing this thing. And it's not the Jews doing this thing. It is a small group of very elite, very powerful people who also happen to be Jewish, who hide behind the 99.99999% of just regular Jewish people throughout the world that are good people. But I also believe that he's doing that intentionally. Kanye understands the media, bro. I think he's doing it intentionally to create the scenario. I think he's out-chessed him. I don't think it's going to work canceling this dude, because what I notice is that Black America is waking up and saying, holy f***, dude, they're trying to take this Black icon's life away for saying this. And we don't do that when they say this about anybody else. And so he's shining a light on something that people are afraid to talk about, people don't like talking about, and he's doing so in a way, in language that is not accurate, but I think he's not using the language. I think that's intentional to get the attention. Right. Yeah. But the truth is, the way I said it is actually what's happening, in my opinion. We have a very few select, powerful, evil people that are coordinating together to push an agenda, and they hide behind the amazing race of Jewish people that inhabit this globe. That's what I see happening. Yeah. So,
and Lex Friedman made a good point. Attack the person. Attack the individuals.
That's it. And he was saying, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, he's saying the same. He's saying exactly the same that I'm saying. Yeah. But like I said, I think Kanye thinks the same that we're saying. I think that he's creating controversy because Kanye understands that controversy gets people to pay attention.
Also, I think, the rumor was he wanted out of the deal with Adidas and some others, and he got out of it. And I don't know if you saw his post yesterday, but he has all the trademarks. He has everything back. He owns it all. They're just they're washing their hands of it, so interesting thoughts. I wanted to get your perspective. With the time we have left, all that being said, one of the ways people stayed sane and mentally tough over the last couple of years was with 75 Hard, the program you created. I did notice a rise in the popularity and adoption of the program. Did you notice that too? And why do you think it became so popular over the last 2 years?
Well, it's continuing to grow and accelerate. It's like, a lot of people think it's a fad. It's never going to go away. It's not a fad. And the reason it's never going to go away and the reason it's going to continue to grow is what most people who criticize it fail to understand, is that it's actually a lifestyle. If you actually did the program the way it's supposed to be done and you followed through with the complete Live Hard program, which is 3 30-day phases after 75 Hard that are to be repeated yearly, it's a lifestyle. People that do it correctly, it changes their life. Why does anything stick around? It sticks around because it works. So, I don't anticipate that slowing down. I've been attacked by everybody for it. Oh, it's too aggressive. Oh, it's too much. I had Good Morning America run a piece on it. Like, dude, you can't fuck with it because it actually works. And anybody who criticizes it, they haven't done it. So it is what it is. But I think it's going to continue to grow. I have a new book coming out here in the next 3 months. And I think it's one of the most important investments anybody can make, because when people think about discipline the wrong way, bro. They think about it like I thought. You have to understand that discipline is something that is created. You don't just get born with it. When you start to think about it differently and you start to realize that it's no different than a muscle, right? Like your brain and your mind and your discipline, they're here and you have to train them. And the way you train them is by doing difficult things and passing those tests over and over and over and over again. And your discipline muscle that lives up here starts to get stronger. That was a big game changer for me. understanding that. A lot of people are coming to the understanding that when you have strong discipline, it unlocks the game for all the other things, right? That's something that most people are kept in the dark about. In my opinion, the reason that most people believe that success is for those people and discipline is something that you're born with is because we're taught that so that we will never become anything, so that we can be dependent on them, the people who create everything and dictate to us. And so it's really a way to free yourself inside of a tyrannical life system that we all live in by becoming highly disciplined. And I think, the mental health benefits that come from that, they can't be overstated. I wouldn't have been able to get off that medication and do all these things without that. And by the way, that's not telling anybody to do that. You need to work with someone who knows what they're doing to come off of those things. So,
you nailed it when you said, anybody who criticizes it has never done it. My family and two other families decided to do it together. I think there was 11 or 12 of us in total. And we had a group chat going, we worked out together, sent pics and recommended books to each other. And besides the obvious health benefits, there really was like power in numbers. Like it was such an awesome group project, that brought a bunch of us together for a common goal. And we worked as a team, right? They created an incredible experience for 75 days. It really was, man. It was mind-blowing for us.
Think about this, okay? Yeah. Think about the dynamics. Just think about this. Think about the dynamics of a championship team. Why do great teams have the bond that they have? Well, the reason they have the bond that they have is because they respect each other. And why do they respect each other? Because they suffer together, okay? So whenever you do this program as a family, okay, you're suffering together, you're working together, you're doing the work together. Now you start to respect and see and love people in a different way. And it improves everything, including the culture inside your household. And I've had literally, thousands of people, men and women, they message me and they're like, bro, I don't know if anybody's told you this, but this is amazing for a marriage. We have such a better relationship, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that's great. And I don't get into it because bro, that's not my cup of tea. Like other people can be relationship experts. I'm a business expert. When I search through the 75 hard hashtag or through where people tag me and to see these incredible stories, it just makes me feel like I'm doing something good. You know what I'm saying? And actually making a difference, which is really the intent of everything that I do. I just want this to clean itself up and it to be a better place. And, it starts with ourselves.
I say this all the time, and I know we're up against it here, but I say it all the time. You take a lot of criticism and heat for just saying what others don't say or are afraid to say. I've said this a lot of times, but when you simmer it down, you're really just a dude who cares about community and being a good citizen. That's it. And apparently that's controversial, Andy.
It doesn't help that I'm 260 pounds, scars on my face from getting stabbed. And by the way, I have an aggressive voice. So I understand how people don't get me at first. Listen, I got to live this way all the time, bro. What people perceive as anger and frustration really is passion. It's because, and you know where it comes from, dude? It comes from this. I know how regular I am. I know my life. I know where I came from. And it makes me angry when I see other people who actually have more talent than I ever had, not believing in themselves or doing anything about their lives. I appreciate that because that's the truth. That is how I feel. And I do want to make a difference and I want to help people and I'm doing the best I can at it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, listen, man, just in the last hour here, we did talk about, some issues that are affecting, our communities, civilization as a whole. We talked about that. We did talk about, mental health, which I really appreciate. Of course, the benefits of 75 Hard. You really are helping humanity. I don't know if you've taken a second to step back and think about that, but think about what we talked about in the last hour and how this is going to go out to our community and our listeners and our subscribers. They're going to hear that. Yeah. Right? I think it's beautiful, man. I really do. And that's why I wanted to get you on to talk about this. 2 questions left. Number one, what do entrepreneurs and business builders need to be focused on going forward now? Any thoughts off the top of your head?
First, I think you need to be very careful with, if you're doing well right now, okay, and everything's okay, and you have expendable finances to grow your business, you need to be very strategic about where you apply those things. Go on defense, but I think it's also very important to be prepared. Be very focused, be very strategic, and make smart decisions, understanding that things are very volatile at the moment. I think when it comes to employees and having employees, I think it's very important for leaders to take responsibility for these people, because if you have the opportunity to build the skill set and the mental mindset of these people right now, you should work extra hard to do so, because if you have to let them go because they're not performing, that's ultimately your fault. It's just like Michael Jordan. He doesn't like celebrate all his championships. He talks about the 20-something shots, game-winning shots that he missed. As a person who's been doing this for a long time, the things that bother me the most are the people I let down through my own weak leadership. And so I think it's very important for people to take responsibility for their staff and the people that rely on them, to tell them honestly where they are and where they need to improve, and to work with them to improve, to become higher skilled members of the team. Outside of those things, I think it's very important for people to be good to each other. I think it's very important for people to understand that everybody's struggling right now. It's very hard, and it's affecting people in all kinds of different ways outside of the propaganda. And so I think having a lot of grace for people in this time, not buying into cancel culture, not hopping on a bandwagon because so-and-so tells you to be angry, and to critically think through things. What I think we're living to is a power structure that is coming to the end, and they're going to get desperate, and they're going to want to hang on to the power. And the more that we treat each other well, the more that we come together, the quicker that will happen, and we will be free. That's what I think.
That's fantastic. Really great breakdown. Well put. I heard a phrase I liked the other day: when you're not sure how to deal with someone, when in doubt, the kind thing is the right thing. And I think that's okay. You can't go wrong with that.
No, I agree.
Yeah, kind thing is the right thing. Okay. Last question is, can you tell us about what you have on the go projects? You mentioned MF CEO project is starting up again. What else can people look forward to with Andy Frisella?
Dude, I'm super excited. I've kind of taken a break from social and kind of showing my life and what I'm doing, and I'm getting ready to change that. There's a lot of things coming up. I have 2 different YouTube shows getting ready to launch. I have my book. I have the MFCEO project, and I have a ton of growth happening in my real companies that is really amazing stuff. But on a personal level, what you're going to see is you're going to see me come out of retirement and basically dominate everything. So I'm very excited about that.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go, Andy. Well,
yeah,
as always,
it's already done, bro. You guys just haven't seen it yet.
I'm excited. Again, Andy, thanks so much for joining us today. Fantastic discussion as always. I've always said you're one of the most authentic, straight talking, no BS entrepreneurs and leaders in social media. So I really appreciate your time, man. Thanks so much for everything you do.
I had a great time as well. Great conversation, great interview, brother. And it's always an honor to see you and be on your show.